Hello, good evening, and welcome to episode 54 of the Notcast, which is again the continuing adventures of a middle-aged man talking about his record collection to his mobile phone and hoping that somebody somewhere isn't too bored by it. Today I'm going to be talking about one of my favourite bands and one of their albums. As you have previously noticed, every episode I wear a thematically appropriate t-shirt because I'm a man who has got far too many t-shirts. This one here represents what I'm going to be talking about today, which is New Order's Power, Corruption and Lies album from 1983. It is like looking in a mirror, really it is. This t-shirt is not a Power, Corruption and Lies t-shirt. It's an event t-shirt that was only sold at the last show of the 2002 tour at Manchester. I think it was the football cricket ground stadium thingammy-doo-dah. Anyway, I didn't go because I'd seen them at Finsbury Park a few weeks earlier, and I didn't have the money to go to Manchester, so I went to see them at Finsbury Park instead, which was captured on the DVD, which is called, I think, 511. I think, yeah, 511 live at Finsbury Park. But when we get to 2002, I'll talk about that then. So today, talking about this album, New Order, Power, Corruption and Lies, and unlike other people on the internet, this one is going to be worth watching. Now that sounds a little bit bitchy, but frankly if you can't be bitchy, what is the point of having a YouTube channel? I recently saw a video where somebody did a reaction to the first listen of an album, and I'm just staggered by the low quality of commentary that I had through there, and also how uninteresting it is watching a man listen to an album on headphones and then talk about things. And I don't want to sound like a snob, but I am. And I was just bored, really. I was like, what I'm expecting from a reaction video is not what clearly I'm getting in a reaction video. What I'm expecting from a reaction video is just someone to actually talk intelligently about what they've just heard, as opposed to go, yeah, it's good. Sorry, mate. I need better than that. Anyway, as is always the case, when somebody does a YouTube video, there's normally a couple of minutes of blather at the beginning, which is about something that's completely unrelated to the subject matter. And so, therefore, rather than talking about New Order's Power, Corruption and Lies, I'm going to give you a little introduction as to where we are in the New Order story and what is going on with them before we lean into the album. This was the last release of 1982, Factus 8. It was effectively an American mini album, stroke EP, of 5 tracks, which I mentioned in a previous episode. According to the Peter Hook book Substance, the band didn't know about this until copies of it started appearing, and they were like, we didn't authorise this. But on the other hand, as has become very well known, factory records were run perhaps less than competently in certain areas, is probably the best way to put it, and could explain some of the band's and the label's financial decisions as we go along. So we pick up the story of the band first and foremost with what was effectively the precursor to Power, Corruption and Lies, the 1982 Peel session, which I've mentioned on here. And the first side of this is the 1990 Strange Fruit LP. It's a 8-song album. The first side is the Peel session from 1981 that was recorded in London, and the second side was recorded by the band in June 1982, what is called in their diaries as a private session. So effectively the Peel session isn't actually a Peel session, it's a recording made for the BBC by New Order in their own studio with their own production team of 4 at that point previously unreleased songs. And as I've mentioned them before, there's a cover version of Turn the Heater On. There is We All Stand Too Late, which is a previously unreleased and unrecorded New Order original song, and 506. And they were occupied the middle ground between the sound of movement and the sound of Power, Corruption and Lies. And every member of New Order will probably tell you that they regard Power, Corruption and Lies. Hello, I'm Power, Corruption and Lies. I'm a very good album by a very good band. Most people in New Order regard Power, Corruption and Lies as the first New Order records. Now, for a band that was notoriously reticent in creating their own myth, there are, of course, several books about life. Some in New Order, I'm pretty sure that there are some occasions when there are some meetings where every single person in that meeting ended up writing a book about it, which is particularly bizarre. It's kind of like that meme that we've got of Spider-Man, where they're all pointing to each other and saying, are you, or are you the other guy? And so on and so forth. So this is Stephen Morris's book, Fast Forward. And Stephen Morris's book is both wonderfully astute and has a lovely tone of phrase to it. And I should have really put a post-it note in here around the album, but effectively, he says very clearly that the band regards Power, Corruption and Lies as the first New Order album. I'm going to have a quick look in Barney's book here, Bernard, as he now wants to know, talking about the album and the constituent singles. So chapter 13 is called Here Comes Success in Bernard's book, and very clearly says, I'd felt that there was no point in accumulating all this new equipment if we weren't going to create something unique and interesting with it. How far could we take it? What were the boundaries of possibility? Could we push them out further? And the thing that the band then go on is that as a result they were going, well, we're using technology to see where they can go with it. So this book is very clear about Movement, the album, is that Bernard doesn't like it. And as far as I recall correctly, the band haven't played any songs from Movement since around either 1985 or 1987. And with Power, Corruption and Lies, Peter Hook is pretty clear about saying also that he thinks that it is the best, or more correctly, the first of the New Order albums that really feels like New Order. Again, I should have got my post-it notes out around that, but all these books are available on all your major news retailers and relatively affordably as well. So are we going to go to Tony Wilson's book, 24-Hour Party People, Plastic Face Cannot Smile, White Out? And as Tony often said, between the truth and the legend, always print the legend. And my God, this book is full of legends, possibly not a huge amount of truth. In one section here, they're talking about how the band lost an awful lot of money. So I'm going to lean forward slightly and get to what we are probably all interested in knowing about, which is this, Blue Monday, Factory 73, the biggest selling 12-inch single of all time, and also the one that apparently lost the band a lot of money. That isn't strictly true, as we will come to later on, but I wanted to focus upon the design elements of this record. So this record is designed to look like a large-scale floppy disk. If you're old like me, you'll remember that data was often kept on floppy disks that were held in very, very similar things. They were thin plastic wafers which contained a series of zeros and ones, and you fed it into your computer through a slot, and these were 5¼ inches, very much a precursor to the CD. And Blue Monday was designed as to basically replicate the original floppy disk. So Peter Saville was at the studio while the band were recording, saw a floppy disk and said, "Oh, what's that, Stephen?" And Stephen went, "Well, that's the album." And he says, "Oh, that looks really good. I'd like to make that the cover of the record." And he said, "Well, you can have one of the other floppy disks. Don't take the one with the album on." Which, of course, later came to an issue when we went to do remasters and reissues and so on and so forth and remixes, is that a lot of the original materials didn't work anymore. So Blue Monday, as a 12-inch single, is apparently the biggest selling 12-inch single of all time. It sold over 1 million copies. And as of the 31st of May 1983, that is less than 3 months after it came out, it had sold, according to Stephen's book. Hang on. Sorry, that took a little while to flick through. It wouldn't have been interesting for you to watch. So according to page 142, Fast Forward, by the end of 31st of May 1983, Blue Monday had sold 230,340 copies and made £113,477.78 pence profit. Now, the rumour has it that the art for Blue Monday and the sleeve was so staggeringly expensive that the band lost 5p, or more correctly, factory lost 5p on every copy that was printed. This is not true. As I've said before, between the fact and the legend, print the legend. So the album, or more correctly, this has a number of hand-cut holes in it. In fact, there was a website called Blue Monday Owners Club where you could do that and look particularly handsome, especially if most of your face is invisible. But this was a multicolour sleeve, so most sleeves for Blue Monday, in fact all the sleeves for Blue Monday at the time, there was a standard 4-colour print process, and then there were some special colours which were extra and cost more. Naturally, this has the special colours on. It also has 6 special die cut holes which are cut by hand for every copy, so the production costs for the record were substantial, and so therefore factory records made a lot less money, New Order made a lot less money, but it looked amazing. I think as time went on, factory reconfigured this sleeve so that it became much cheaper to produce, and therefore they lost less money stroke made more money. But apparently about, the standard profit ratio went down by about 5p per copy, so to say that they lost 5p is not accurate. On the other hand, according to the Tony Wilson book, the factory records made 1 pence profit on every copy that was sold. I don't think that was strictly true, and of course there are lies and damn statistics, so depending on which book you believe. Now, Blue Monday is a great song, as you probably know. I don't think there's a human alive that hasn't heard the umpa section and thought, oh, that's quite good. And obviously when it gets played in a nightclub, in the days when I went to nightclubs, and I last went to a nightclub about 2002, I always dance to this, and nobody needs to see me dancing to Blue Monday. That Blue Monday was originally designed to be a machine-led encore, so that the band could play an encore without actually appearing on stage. Didn't quite work out like that, and it became their biggest hit. Also, of course, the band appeared on Top of the Pops. They played live. They screwed it up, and it was one of the first times that a band appeared on Top of the Pops, and the single then went down in the charts after it had been performed on Top of the Pops, because the special arrangement that they had was 4 minutes long. There is no 7-inch of the Blue Monday 1983 version, so there's not even a promo 7-inch of Blue Monday, not as an official single. There is a 7-inch edit which was on a VHS tape as a promo video, and a 7-inch edit that was used for the TV appearance, but there's no 7-inch of the original 1983 Blue Monday, although it does get a 7-inch release, and I'll come to that later on. And that was followed up by the album Power, Corruption and Lies. And the first thing to note about the album is this, much like this, and much like the subsequent single, Confusion, which is down there, is that they feature a special colour code on the front, and if you look carefully, there's those 3 colours there are the same. Now, there's also, on the back of Power, Corruption and Lies, what's informatively and helpfully described as a colour wheel, which helps you understand, if you're feeling particularly esoteric, exactly what each one of the letters and numbers and so on and so forth is represented by a colour on a chart. And so I will quickly bring out, where have I put it? I can't remember where I've stuck it right now. I have an original New Order badge from 1983. I'll get to that in a minute. Hang on. Here we go again, back on the pause. And I've got it. So this is a New Order badge from 1983. And if you look carefully at the badge, those colours say New Order. If you're the kind of person that really thinks that it's absolutely essential and imperative to have a badge with a load of weird colours on. Of course, later on, this was the badge that became more popular, but this is an original Factory Records badge, and of course it's got the original Rust on it. That's exciting, isn't it? Absolutely not. But the strange thing about, obviously, the biggest selling 12-inch single of all time, and the requisite album that it doesn't appear on, is that nowhere on here does it feature the name of the band, not on the sleeve or anything like that. The only place you'll find out that Blue Monday is called Blue Monday is by looking on the label to the 12-inch single. And the only way you'll find out what the songs are called on Power, Corruption and Lies is by looking on the label to Power, Corruption and Lies. And the cover for this, by the way, is based upon a clear lift of a classical painting by a guy who I think is called Fontaine Latour, but I could be wrong there. And the idea being is that actually it's a representation of power, corruption and lies. So it's a beautiful object, and power, corruption and lies comes into our life by looking beautiful and seductive, whereas actually those flowers aren't flowers, they're dead plants and they're rotting. I mean, it's a representation of it. Peter Saville, who did the artwork has done the artwork for almost every single one of the New Order records, clearly thinks too much, but that's not always necessarily a bad thing. So we've got the artwork here for Power, Corruption and Lies. And when the band went to, or I think Tony Wilson went to the National Trust, who owned it, or more correctly owned the original of it, I think the question that he asked was very much along the lines of, well, you know, who owns the painting? And the answer from, I think, the main person who worked there said, the people of Britain. And Tony Wilson's response was, well, I think the people of Britain would like to use it. At which point they were told, I think we can probably make an exception for you. So, Power, Corruption and Lies, regarded by the band as the first New Order record, and the first record that they still consistently play tracks off this live. It's 8 songs. And I think at this point, I think it's fair to say that New Order were good at writing songs. They weren't good at putting together albums. And I'll explain why I think that. Because they put every song that they wrote out, apart from Too Late. And every song that they wrote was released in some form. So that when you look at the deluxe edition box sets of the albums, there are no unissued New Order classics out there. The band released everything that they recorded. But what they hadn't done is they hadn't got the art of, I think, sequencing the album. They hadn't got the art of putting the best songs on the album. So Blue Monday is clearly, in my opinion, one of the best songs from the period. It's on a 12-inch single. And it's on, I think, American versions of the album and cassette when it was first released. But it's not been on, you know, a standard 8-track. It's not been on the standard CD release of the album. So for a long time, Blue Monday was never regarded by the band as part of Power, Corruption and Lies. In America, the label put Blue Monday at the end of side 1 and The Beach at the end of side 2, but the band never put it on there officially. So you've got 4-song album, which is, well, more correctly, 4-song side 1, which is Age of Consent, We All Stand, The Village, and 586. Okay, so those are, you know, you listen to them, that's pretty good. That's a good side of an album, although We All Stand in The Village aren't amazing. 586 is a belter, and it's one that they still play live to this day. And then side 2, you've got Your Silent Face, Ultraviolence, Ecstasy, and Leave Me Alone. And I should point out, this copy has a massive great big whacking scratch on it there in the middle of Ultraviolence, but that doesn't bother me too much because that's not one of my favourite songs. And again, Ecstasy, by the way, is a song that New Order never performed live. This is my original copy, which I bought for about £3 in 1989, when Factory Records was still a going concern and you could pick up New Order releases cheap as chips. And it's not a great sequence for the album. Really, really blunt about it. It's not a great sequence at all. Blue Monday isn't on there. Some of the songs would, in any other life, there would have been B-sides. Yeah, Ecstasy would have been a B-side, and people would go, "Wow, that's a really good B-side. It should be on the album." But New Order was still clearly very much in the mindset that the singles and the albums were separate entities, and putting a single on an album at that point felt a bit cheap and a bit exploitative. Well, really, it cost them album sales. It wouldn't have cost them anything to have stuck Blue Monday on the album. And I think the sequence for Power, Corruption and Lies is a little wonky in the nicest sense of the word. Age of Consent is a great track to open the album with, but surely I thought maybe Blue Monday should be the first song on side 2 of the album. And there's another song that they wrote and recorded just after the release of the album, which by all standard metrics feels like it should be on the record as well. Now, just before the release of Power, Corruption and Lies, the band released a track called Video 586. It was on a cassette compilation. It's a 22-minute early kind of electronic, very basic run through the basic sequence of 586, and it was used as a soundtrack to a short film, and it was put on a cassette, and that's where it stayed for many, many years until 1997, when it was released as a 12-inch single. Here's the 12-inch single of Video 586. It's not particularly good. It's quite expensive to get now, so don't go around trying to track it down. But effectively, it's a 22-minute electronic, very basic sequencer track by New Order. Also on the B side of Video 586 is the Joy Division track, As You Said, which, if I recall correctly, was the first time that officially Joy Division and New Order shared the same vinyl slab, until 2011's Total compilation. Video 586, look it up, not amazing. The band were playing live quite a lot at that point, and here's a couple of vinyl bootlegs from the period. This one is called They Came, We Saw Their Music Conquered. It was, I think, recorded in Australia in December 1982, and for some reason the vinyl inner sleeve the inner sleeves got stuck in here, so I might not be able to get this out, which could be awkward. Hang on, pause again, and let's see how we do. Okay, I've got it out. What appeared to have been the case is that the vinyl inner sleeve had got crumbled inside here, but They Came, We Saw, and Their Music Conquered was a New Order vinyl bootleg LP recorded in December 1982 in Australia, and this was at the point where Blue Monday was one of their was being played for the first time, and I have no memory of whether this is any good or not. It's probably a shitty audience recording, but the amount of New Order bootlegs really proliferated and became very, very popular. Here's another one, which is called Radio Pictures. For some reason, I have no idea what this picture is on the front, but it's recorded at the Hacienda on the 26th of January 1983, and features a number of songs. Again, it's probably an audience recording, but again, if you like New Order and go to record fairs, and New Order became uncool as time went on, became a fogies band, it was very easy to pick up old vinyl bootleg LPs and singles and things like that. Obviously everything's cool now that it's old, but to me they were always cool, although it does feel a little bit like Grandpa Simpson talking about Clarence Creedwater Revival or Grand Funk Railroad or something sometimes. Following on from Power, Corruption and Lies came the next single, Confusion, which was, I remember buying this from W.H. Smith's in the basement of Birmingham city centre in December 1989, with a book token that had been given to me by my grandma. The great thing about W.H. Smith gift book tokens, and I insisted on getting book tokens from W.H. Smith, is because my parents and my grandparents bought me book tokens because they wanted me to read, but they accepted book tokens in the record department of W.H. Smith's, and they had a copy of this, which I'd been looking at for weeks, but I couldn't afford because I was on pocket money, and so I handed over my book token, and I got £3.49 worth of vinyl that I still hold, love and cherish to this day. Now, when you look at the cover art upon this, what you'll see is it says New Order and Confusion, but the labels and numbers and all that information is overlaid over top of each other, which is a trick that they used later for some t-shirts. Confusion was only released as a 12-inch single, recorded in March 1983, just after the release of Power, Corruption and Lies. So a little bit too late to appear on Power, Corruption and Lies, but by the time the band came to play your local village community hall and centre, they'd recorded it and were playing it live. So this is produced by Arthur Baker, and all of the engineering is by John Roby, who will appear later on in the New Order story. It's a okay song, classic slice of mid to early 80s kind of funk, disco type stuff. Got a very clean, very sterile sound around it, clearly recorded out of other different stuff than the Power, Corruption and Lies album, but it's not particularly amazing. And normally I try to do these all in one take, but I've been interrupted a couple of times by not being able to find the right things. Also, I thought the door just went, but it wasn't. It was just creaky wind going through the door. There's a remix of Confusion. This was pressed in 1990, and it has a number of remixes on it. It's only on vinyl. A couple of these remixes are absolutely amazing, and I strongly recommend getting them if you can afford them, and if you can't afford them, don't get them, but they're all available free on the internet. So these are, you know, exclusive 1990 remixes of New Order. I kind of think that the band might not have had a huge amount of money actually, and decided to do some cheeky remixes on the slide to bump up the bank accounts. This is a promo of Confusion on Streetwise Records in the US, and that brings us past to the end of the Power, Corruption and Lies period. A couple of other things I'm going to point out. As I mentioned earlier, Video 586 was released as a CD single in 1996, 1997, and the Factory Records CD of Power, Corruption and Lies, the text on there says FAC CD 75 if you look at it, and again it's 8-track CD. Where's Blue Monday? Or perhaps, in fact, if you look into the run-out groove of Power, Corruption and Lies, it says Where's Murder? And Murder was a song that was recorded during the Power, Corruption and Lies sessions, but not released. And I don't think it was performed live by New Order, but it was released as a single on Factory Benelux in Belgium, as a 12-inch, backed with a remix of Thieves Like Us. So if you wanted to get Murder by New Order, you had to buy this 12-inch single, and this again is an original Factory Records edition. It's got a barcode on actually. Might be the first barcode to appear on a New Order release. And after that, the band carried on from the Confusion sessions. They went back and they enjoyed working with Arthur Baker, so they also released another single which is called Thieves Like Us. And again, borrowing liberally from the classical book, or maybe the books on Peter Savor's shelves. This is a painting which he's then put a sort of clock around. I don't know if there's any significance to the numbers on there. They probably put it on there in order to look cool. Thieves Like Us is probably the greatest A and B combination that New Order ever had. Two lovely, long, luxurious 6-7 minute songs, epics by their standards. I've seen New Order play Lonesome Tonight, the B-side, live. I've never seen them play Thieves Like Us, and in fact, as far as I can remember, they've only played Thieves Like Us once since about 1988, in 2012 when they played in Berlin. So, what happened after that? Well, I did mention earlier that there was a 7-inch release of Blue Monday. 1985 saw the release of this, Blue Monday and Thieves Like Us, as a 7-inch single in Poland. So this is official stuff here. As you can see, it's cheap, and you know, they didn't even bother putting a label on it. So, you know, all of the text that you've got on the 7 inches is effectively stamped in one go. This I think is the only official 7-inch release of Blue Monday and Thieves Like Us in a retail format. Although it's easier to get promos of Confusion and Thieves Like Us as opposed to this in some respects. I think this came out in Poland, and when I saw it, of course I've got to buy it, because I've got to buy everything that New Order do. And if I'd have tried to collect everything that New Order did now, I'd probably be bankrupt. But luckily, picking it up week by week over the past 30 or so years has made it more achievable. Now, as I've mentioned before, 2008 saw the Factory Records era reissue program begin, and there's a 2-disc version of Power, Corruption and Lies from 2008 that contains an explanatory essay. Reproduces the Blue Monday art here, and you know, it contains a very basic bonus disc which contains Blue Monday and the Beach, Confusion, Thieves Like Us, Lonesome Tonight, Murder, a remix of Thieves Like Us, the instrumental, and the instrumental of Confusion. Fair to say, at the time that this came out, fans were very, very, very disappointed with the contents of these. Effectively, they'd taken a bunch of terrible sounding B-sides, throw them onto a bonus disc, and put them in there. and I think that the mastering label that they're tasked with mastering the bonus discs went bankrupt, but they still had a production run to hit, so they, in terms of the B-sides, they weren't remastered or anything like that. Thankfully, last year saw the release of the Power, Corruption and Lies super duper box sets. Presumably these box sets, including the one for Movement and the one that's probably going to be announced for Low Life quite soon, are kind of continuations of the deluxe editions, giving them the respect and bonus tracks that they deserve, and the price tag that we don't deserve. So these box sets probably cost around about £90 or so. That's a heck of an investment, especially when it's not that weighty. Now I'll explain why it's not that weighty. There's an awful lot of new order bootleg recordings and live recordings going out, and I think that Bernard really hates bootlegs, and he hates live recordings, or at least maybe he's changed his time now that he's distanced away from it. So when I was younger, I would be constantly trading cassettes in the post of new order live shows. This is New York Funhouse. This one is Melbourne and the Paradise Garage. This one is the Leeds Futurama Festival, and they're all on YouTube for free now, in relatively low bit rates, but since they never sounded amazing to start with, that's kind of okay too. So Power, Corruption and Lies, let's go through the box set. Let's pretend I'm not unboxing it, so that way we can pretend that I'm not actually doing an unboxing video. So Power, Corruption and Lies, lift the lid off. Fancy bit of paper telling you all the stuff that's in here. By the way, all the audio is streaming now, so if you don't feel like buying the box set or you can't afford it and you just want to listen to it, it's all streaming. But we've got the Power, Corruption and Lies album, we've got a bonus audio CD, we've got 2 DVDs, we've got a vinyl version of the album, and we've got a book. So let's go through that and say, well, is this worth getting? Well, the bottom line is, yes, it is worth getting if you like it. Now, if you think beyond the price tag around that, we've got here a vinyl edition of the album, which is fully replicates the original experience, apart from the fact there's a mild copyright notice on here. Again, features a slightly different inner sleeve to the one that I'm used to, probably because my version was a little bit cheaper. And again, all the labels and all the details are exactly the same, apart from a minor bit of copyright information that's a legal necessity on there. In fact, let's check and see if this is the run out groove still says "Where's Murder." No, it doesn't. It doesn't say "Where's Murder" on the copyright on the run out grooves to these. And there's a whole subculture around writing inside the inner grooves of vinyl, which is almost as boring as it sounds. In fact, it's even more boring. I'm well aware that this is very much into the territory of possibly being an audio train spotter. So let's not spend too long on that. Let's pretend that I'm a normal human being, as opposed to a random selection of anecdotes wrapped in an old band t-shirt. Here's the book that comes with Power, Corruption and Lies. And I haven't looked in this book for a few months, but it takes a very similar format to the Movement book. It's got photographs, it's got explanatory text, it's got, oh look, here's pictures of people, and there's more pictures of people, here's pictures of gig flyers and things. And the strange thing is, I'm starting to remember this stuff. It's really weird to live in a period of time when I'm starting to remember things that I'm seeing in museums. So when I went to the Pink Floyd Museum, or more correctly the Pink Floyd exhibition, The Immortal Remains, it was really strange to see one of the objects, or one of the performances, which I remember seeing and being at with my very own eyes. That's only 15 years ago now. Seeing that in a museum and going, I was there. And I mean, this is one of the strange things about living in this day and age, is that we are living through some absolutely enormously catastrophic world history, and it's really strange, because when a civilization collapses, or when world history occurs, when a war occurs, people are still eating, they're still falling in love, they're still dancing to music, they're still living the lives that they've got to live throughout all of that. And I think, in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic, we are still living through history, but at the same point we still have to stop and eat and watch television and laugh and joke and pet cats and go for walks and all that type of stuff. So it's pretty weird. So here's the real meat of what's on the Power, Corruption and Lies box set. 4 discs. We've got the remastered version of the album in a card sleeve, again with the inner here. We've got what's called Power, Corruption and Lies, the extras, and I'm going to explain the extras on here, okay, because it's several writing session recordings. So we've got early versions of Age of Consent and The Village, 586, Your Silent Face, Ecstasy, Leave Me Alone, and then we've got the Peel session from 1982. And the reason that the Peel session is on here, and the Peel session is on the Movement box set, is because this Peel session was recorded in the band's studio, so they have the copyright over that and can reissue it without paying a fee to the BBC. There's an instrumental version of Too Late, which is again the only time that song was recorded was for the Peel session, or at least released. And then there's a demo of Thieves Like Us, Murder, Blue Monday, and an alternate mix of Blue Monday. But the actual Blue Monday, the actual Confusion, the actual Thieves Like Us don't appear on this box set. So if you want to get if you want to get Thieves Like Us and Blue Monday and Confusion on CD, you have to buy Substance, or you have to buy the singles album, which has the 7-inch edits, or you have to buy Total. The real meat of it comes in 2 DVDs. So between these 2 DVDs here, and another one which I'm just about to take out of its place here, between these 2 DVDs you have something like 6 hours of video material of previously unreleased New Order stuff. So there's 3 live shows, there's a documentary, and there is an extra 15 live tracks on here. So the first live show on this one is from the Hacienda in Manchester in June 1982. And by the way, this version features an incredible medley of Temptation and Everything's Gone Green, where because of the technology the band were using at the time, you couldn't just press a button, start and stop. You had to put the sequences in order and then play them, and what that meant is you could meld songs into and out of each other. And the band used to play a medley of Temptation and Everything's Gone Green, and sometimes 586 as well. There's a version recorded at Milan in 1982. There's a version recorded in, I think, Barcelona Bradford in 1984, where they play those 3 songs inside each other, and it's about a 20-minute medley, and it's glorious, really fun. And it actually sounds like the band are almost enjoying themselves, which is, not very British, but there you are. The other show on the DVD is the Rose Hill Hotel in Kilkenny in Ireland, which is shot, I think, with a single camera, but it was recorded onto a cassette. Stephen Morris apparently has all the cassettes and all the videotapes, and is spending most of lockdown transferring them into digital formats and then preparing box sets, so thank you, Stephen, for that. But the Kilkenny show is legendary. It was on the radio, heavily bootlegged. You can easily find it on YouTube. Rough, scrappy recording of the band, as was, clearly miles away from the slicker, more stable version of New Order that currently performs. New Order were notorious live for either being amazing or awful, and sometimes in the same song, depending upon their mood, and being very unreliable. There's TV sessions on here as well, so there's Top of the Pops, Switch, Countdown, and another Top of the Pops. And then there's an extra 10 songs recorded, mostly with a single camera at the back of the venue for the band's reference, and rescued from the confines of VHS. Now, I would hope that the full shows are available on YouTube at some point in the future, because they certainly don't seem to be getting a commercial release. And while some people might think that it's actually of very limited interest having a single camera recording made by a member of the band's road crew and sticking it on YouTube for viewing, it doesn't cost anything to stick on YouTube, and I wish people did do it. The band aren't losing sales by doing that at all, because they're not trying to sell the stuff. So the second DVD, for Power, Corruption and Lies, this is about 2.5 hours long. It has the Play at Home documentary, which was broadcast in 1984 on Channel 4, and that is about an hour long. And it's a lovely watch to see the days when lots of people were alive and everybody got on with everybody else as much as they could do. It's not amazing, but it's a fun, nice bit of history to just watch and enjoy, and it gives you a bit of an understanding as to who the band was and how they worked at that point. And then there's a live show which is from the Hacienda in 1983, which was filmed for use in the Play at Home documentary, and that's about an hour and a half. and it's just a great rare show, and it's the kind of show that people were hoping would exist but weren't sure that actually did. Now that brings us to the end of Power, Corruption and Lies, and everything that goes with it. What I will say about Power, Corruption and Lies is I think it's a really good album. It's not the best New Order album, not the best New Order album by a long chance at all, but it is a damn fine record. Production wise, it hasn't aged. You know, the use of technology makes it sound still in some respects futuristic, even though it isn't. The songwriting is pretty good. I think the album could have been better if maybe we changed a couple of the songs around, maybe put Blue Monday on there, maybe put Ecstasy on the B-side of something, that type of thing. But on the other hand, I'm never going to complain about having more New Order songs. As Tony Wilson said, New Order were very good at writing songs, they weren't very good at writing albums. That's exactly where they were at this point in their career. It's a fascinating period of the band's development where they really step out of the shadow of being Joy Division and start being very much their own people. Bernard was writing his own lyrics. And because he was writing his own lyrics, he was owning them more, and that's probably one of the reasons why the band play songs from the album live now. So in recent years I've seen the band play Age of Consent, 586, Ultraviolence live, and you know, I never thought I'd get to see any member of New Order play any song live, let alone to have 3 or 4 of the songs from Power, Corruption and Lies played live by New Order, as well as the whole of Power, Corruption and Lies played by a former member of New Order. But I will address the Peter Hook solo years later on, I think. I'm going to wrap up here. Hopefully that's been, you know, interesting. If it hasn't, I could just do a reaction video where I just listen to the album and then I just pull a face. But I don't think that's going to be very exciting for you. The next one I'm thinking about, primarily, I will say that this one is not quite a viewer request, but I put a poll up with 4 options on. This one, Power, Corruption and Lies, swept the board with well over 50% of the votes. The next one below it was me bitching about the rise of Skywalker, because the internet always needs more videos about Star Wars. Then below that was a couple of other things. One of the other things I'm interested in doing in a future episode is talking about obscure horror films that I love and why I love them. But I'll get to that some other time, I think. And so next up, we've got a number of options. We've got U2's How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb. We've got me talking about horror movies. We've got Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, possibly me talking about New Order's Low Life, maybe Suede's Head music. I'm never going to run out of albums, I think, somehow. So I'm just going to keep going. Anyway, time to stop. I'm going to have a drink, then I'm going to go to the shop and I'm going to buy some dinner. So I don't know what that's going to be yet. I'm going to wrap up here. So thank you, and hopefully see you again soon. All right, bye.